welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Hot Yarns. In this video, we are going to work on the week 2 section of the Abstractly Chic Shawl, which is the 2018 Crochet Along hosted by me and sponsored by Red Hot Yarn. This wonderful shawl has a lot of different teaching points as we work along together to construct this piece. I hope that you will jump in, join in, or continue on with this shawl project with me as we move into week 2 and we start the center cable panel. By this point, you have finished week 1's instructions, which means you have a piece that looks very similar to this right here, right? Or if I move the neutral color one, it looks just like this one, right? Well, what we want to do now is we are going to actually work on this center section right here. So this center section here, it's made up of single crochets. And then where you see this surface slip stitches that have gone on, there are actually chain 1 spaces or chain 2 spaces where the crossovers are to give us a path for where we're going to put our slip stitches later on. So this entire section is rather easy in the sense that it just uses single crochets, but it adds a different dimension because there's also a chart available for you to see where you put your chain 1s. Don't worry, those of you who don't like charts, there's written instructions. But along with the single crochets, you're going to be joining as you go. That's right. As we work on this center section, we're going to start down here at the bottom, but we're going to get there first by working single crochets all along the side edge of what we've just completed. And then we will chain extra stitches out here and work back and forth. Every time we come back to this edge, we will actually join to the edge with a single crochet 2 together. The 2 together is a typical decrease stitch, but we are using it as an actual joining stitch. We will join the last stitch of our single crochets of this row, and we will join it with the side stitch that we placed along the side of our work that's already completed. It's really easy to do once you learn how to do it and really understand the concept. And it's a technique that you can then later on use to add borders or trim to different projects that maybe are complete, but you decide after the fact it needs a little something extra. So this is a really great place for you to learn a new technique. On top of that, we're going to do those slip stitches for the cable section up the center, but we will do that in the very last video. We're just doing the prep work here. So go ahead, grab your work that is worked up into this point, grab your hook, grab your yarn and your pattern, which is available for free over on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. I have put a link in the video description box right down there below so that you can follow along with the pattern itself. And while you're down there, please smash that like button, as my kids say, to let people know you enjoyed this video and that you're participating in the crochet along. And then we'll just jump in. I'm ready to go. Hopefully you are too. Your homework is complete. You're ready to start section 2, so let's get to it. As I mentioned before, this part of your homework is complete. It should be completed, and it has to be completed in order to move on to this part. What we are going to do is the last stitch you completed of your final section 1 was actually over here at this edge. This is your straight edge, okay? Here's your increase edge, here's your straight edge. We are going to work a series of single crochets evenly spaced all the way down the side edge of the work we just completed. So what I'm going to do is work on the little swatch we started in last week's video, and we are going to then single crochet evenly down that long straight edge. Is my swatch that we worked on last time. If you remember, I did do a small section right here of the green. I ripped that out and just finished off using just one solid color just to keep things really minimalist for you here in the video. I have finished over here at the straight edge just like I was supposed to. I have my nice increased edge over here, and now it's time for me to work along this edge and do a series of single crochets. In the pattern, I have written out that I want you to do 90 single crochets along the straight edge. You want to evenly space those single crochets all the way down the edge. So that way the first single crochet is up here at the tip and the last single crochet is down here at the bottom. In order to evenly space those single crochets, you can either just go on a wing and a prayer and guesstimate it all the way down. You could use a tape measure and measure the distance and then divide it by 3 or 6 or whatever you find easy to manipulate the 90 stitches. Or you could fold it up into sections, again, of 3 or 6 to make the stitches as evenly spaced as possible. Let me show you what I mean. So a wing and a prayer, it seems pretty self-explanatory, right? You would go ahead and you would turn your work 90 degrees. So here's your work. You just rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm working along the straight edge of my shawl, not the increase edge, but the straight edge. And I would just go and say, okay, I'm going to just try and evenly space out 90 stitches from here to here. If I wanted to do it a little bit more systematically, I can take my tape measure and I could measure from the edge to the top of where I am. Oh, conveniently, I did not plan this. Conveniently, it's 9 inches on my little swatch here, and I could divide that into sections of 3, and then I could take my 90 stitches if I was doing 90 stitches, and then do 30, 30, and 30. Does that make sense? So that's how you can really do it pretty easily that way. Another way is kind of the same premise. If you were to take your piece and fold it into thirds, and then at those points of the fold, those would be your sections of 30, 30, 30, and then 30. Okay. That way I find that way a little bit trickier. I prefer to use my tape measure out, and then you could always just take some stitch markers, and then at the points, let's pretend I'm doing it. I could say there's my 3 inches. So by the time I get to this point, I've got to have 30 stitches. And then by the time I get to this point, which is 6 inches, I have to have another 30 stitches, and that leaves me 30 stitches here. Hopefully that makes sense. That's how you can really divide out as evenly as possible to place your 90 single crochets. So that's what we're going to do now. Having said that, at this point, you should not have cut your yarn, okay? You're still using color A, which is the color you just finished with on section 1. And so we're going to continue on with color A to work down our single crochets along the edge of our work. For my example, I am going to change colors that way you can easily see how I do the stitches, okay? I think it'll be easier for you to see the actual work if I use a different color. So I'm going to just grab my nice green tea color because it shows up really nice and bright here on the video. Notice I'm just changing colors just the same way I told you guys to. And there we go. Okay, so let's move this out of the way and let's get started. I'm at the edge of my work. I rotate my work 90 degrees, and I'm going to work along the straight edge of my work here. And now we'll go ahead and I will single crochet 90 stitches as evenly as possible from here to here. Obviously, mine are not going to be 90 stitches because mine is smaller, but you get the point. Okay, so as I'm starting off here, I'm not going to chain one. I won't do anything like that. I will take my hook, and I am simply going to get the number of stitches that I have designated for this section, and I'm working completely around those stitches. Can you see that? I am not cutting into a stitch, splitting it in half. I'm not doing anything really crazy. I am literally just going around the stitches. As you work along, kind of pay attention. Does it look straight? Does it look nice and even? Perfect. If you have done the method that I've suggested by putting a stitch marker in place so that you can see at what point you need to have a set number of stitches, go ahead and before you get to that point, count your stitches, okay? So when you get to that point where your marker is, go ahead and count your stitches. If you have too few, go ahead and rip out some of the stitches and add some more. If you have too many, rip out some of the stitches and space them out a little bit. It's really easy. Here's the thing though, when you get to this point, you have the number of stitches you want. I don't want you to remove that marker. I want you to keep it there, and here's why. As you carry on and make more single crochets, okay, as you make more single crochets, I need to have a point of reference to be able to count from, correct? So as I'm working my single crochets along here, if I need to know how many single crochets I have from this stitch marker to this marker, if I've removed this, then I don't have any point of reference to count from. So I like to leave that in place, or I will take it out and I'll actually put it into the last stitch that I made in that first section. Does that make sense? And so that way it gives me a really great way to make sure that I'm on the right count, okay? So I will just continue on. I'm going to place my single crochets all the way down this row. I would like you to do the exact same thing, and when you get to the end of this row, pause and I'll help you with the next part. Once you have the total number of stitches you need, which is 90, you then can go ahead and remove those markers, okay? You don't need those anymore once all the stitches are in place, okay? So we don't need those markers. But now we have this nice set of single crochets all along the edge of our work. That's perfect. We are actually going to use those single crochets to join this next section we're making to the section we already made. We're ready to move on to row 1 of the cable section. I'll go ahead and pick up my work, and starting with row 1, we want to chain 25. 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you have chained 25, we are then going to go back and work into those chains we just created, okay? Since we have to work back along these stitches, I'm going to go ahead and turn my work so that way I can work back along these stitches. And what will happen is when I get to the edge of this chain, I'm actually going to join with the single crochet 2 together to the last stitch that I completed over here along this edge, okay? So let's go ahead. We will single crochet in the second chain from hook, so not the first one, but the second one. You will now single crochet into each chain all the way down this row until you get to the very last chain. I'm to the very last chain of my 25. So this is the last chain of my 25. This right here, where my fingernail is, you know what? Let's mark it just so that you can easily see. This stitch right there that I have my marker in, that is the last stitch of the single crochets I did down along the edge of my shawl. What I want to do is I want to single crochet 2 together, this last chain that I have to work into, and the stitch that I have marked, okay, that I just marked. So here we go. I will go into that last chain, yarn over my hook, and pull up a loop. So I have a loop on my hook. Now I will go into that marked stitch. Can you see I went into that marked stitch? I will yarn over my hook and pull up a loop. I'm going to remove that marker now, okay, so that it's gone, so it's not in the way. So I have 3 loops on my hook. I will now yarn over my hook and draw through all 3 loops. Okay, so what that has done is I've used up the last chain of my 25, and I've used the first stitch over here along my edge, and I've joined them together with the single crochet 2 together. I'm not done though. I now need to go ahead and work the next stitch up along the edge of my shawl. You know how typically when you're working in single crochets, you will chain 1 and then turn and then work back? Well, when we are joining together, we actually don't want that chain 1. So I just took out the chain 1. What I want to do is I want to slip stitch in the next stitch up from the stitch I just did the single crochet 2 together. Okay, I'm going to repeat this because this is very, very important. We did a single crochet 2 together into that stitch. So what I want to do is work a slip stitch into the next one up. So I put my hook into there, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on my hook. This slip stitch takes the place of a typical chain 1 that we would work before we turned our work. So I've worked that slip stitch. Now I turn my work. Okay, my yarn is, it looks goofy, okay, because it wants to be over here, and I just have pulled it back behind my hook here. I will not work into that slip stitch, okay? So that slip stitch right there is off limits. I do not want to work into that. My first stitch I will work into will be the one that was the single crochet 2 together. That'll be the first stitch I work into on this particular row. Now that we know where the first stitch is going to be, we can carry on with row 2. Row 2 has us begin by putting a single crochet in the first 2 single crochet. So 1 and 2. I want to take a minute here and point out that there is a star in front of that set of instructions. So you will be coming back to this point of the instructions on this row, okay? So that's where our repeat begins. So we've completed a single crochet in the first 2 single crochet. We now chain 1, skip 1 single crochet in the next 2 single crochet. So 1 and 2, chain 1, skip 1 single crochet in the next 2 single crochet. So there's 1 and 2. This is our repeat. So now we go back to find star and we work again. So we find the star and it says to single crochet in 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and 2. That makes 4 single crochets since our last chain 1, okay? Just want to point that out. So we have 1 and 2, chain 1, skip 1 single crochet in the next 2 single crochet, chain 1, skip 1 single crochet in the next 2. Don't worry if you can't follow along with my verbal instructions. All of this is written down in the pattern. It is also available in chart format along with the pattern if that helps you too. At the end of this row, you notice you end with the 2 single crochet, which makes a total of 3 repeats for this entire row. Now, as I set this down, you can tell that it's very difficult to see where the chain 1 spaces are in this entire row, okay? I will also give you a tip that in the crochet along group, some of the admins made a suggestion of threading a piece of cotton thread through those chain 1s as you're working along, just so that you know where they are. I thought that was a great tip. It's not something I had thought of because I actually use the chart quite often to be able to know where my chain 1 spaces were so that I didn't have to find them. However, I will tell you that as you start working along, you get in a really good rhythm and you start to realize where those chain 1s and future chain 2 spaces are going to be. It will also help knowing that there are just a set number of chain 1 spaces between each chain 2 space, so you can easily just count those little holes with your fingers to know where you are in pattern. I want to show you one more time how to join a row to the actual shawl, and then I want to show you how to do the chain 2 space section so that way you can have no problem with that part as well. So let's go ahead and carry on. I will pick up my work and give it a turn. And right here, I am starting with row 3. So I begin with the chain 1 and I will single crochet in this very first single crochet. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And then I will go ahead and carry on. So I single crochet in the first 2 single crochet. Again, notice that there's a star there. This is where our repeat is going to begin. So we have our first 2 single crochet, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space. There's my chain 1 space. I'm going to skip that whole space and I will work a single crochet in the next 2 single crochet. Okay, so there we go. I put 2. Let me get some more yarn here. Now I will chain 1, skip this chain 1 space, and put a single crochet in the next 2 single crochet. And I'm at the end of my repeat. So I find the star and I repeat again. So I put a single crochet in the next 2, chain 1, skip this chain 1 space, single crochet in the next 2 single crochet, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, single crochet in the next 2 single crochet. One more time, I'm at the end of my repeat, so I repeat again. I will single crochet in the next 2 single crochet, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, single crochet in the next 2 single crochet, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, single crochet in the next single crochet, and then this is my last single crochet, and since it's the last single crochet of the row, I want to join it to my stitches over here on the body of my shawl. So I will go into that last single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, working into the next stitch up. Do not work into the same one that you put your slip stitch. I will repeat this. Do not work into the same stitch as you put your slip stitch. Every single stitch along the edge of the shawl will have only one stitch worked into it, either a single crochet two together or a slip stitch. So we want to make sure we don't go into the one we had our slip stitch in. We go into the next one, yarn over, pull up a loop, so you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, draw through all 3. Now we don't turn our work yet because remember we have to join it to the next stitch up. So working on the next stitch up, I want to do a slip stitch. I go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through. Now I turn my work. I completely ignore that slip stitch, okay? Do not work into that slip stitch or you're going to get too many stitches. And I start with my first stitch right there. And I would begin row 4. Row 4 is very similar to the previous rows. We're going to put a single crochet in the first 2 single crochets, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, single crochet in the next 2 single crochet, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, so on and so forth. I think at this point you kind of get the drill how this goes, so I'm going to just carry on here. Hopefully this is making sense to you. This is a really simple stitch. We're using a simple single crochet, but we're using it in a new way for you guys. We are positioning these chain 1 spaces and chain 2 spaces, we'll get to those in a second, to give us a guide for where we want to put our slip stitch cables. And we're also using our single crochet 2 togethers to actually do a join as you go. So this is a whole lot of techniques happening right here, okay? So I finished the edge of my row, or the end of my row. I set this down. You can still barely see where the chain 1 spaces are, if at all. Don't worry, they're there. And as you're working along, use your fingertips to really feel where those chain 1 spaces are, and you'll be sure not to miss one. Now that we finished row 4, let's go ahead and work row 5, because that's where things change a little bit. We're actually going to work chain 2s instead of a chain 1. So here I am at the start of row 5. I chain 1. I start off with the single crochet in these next 2 single crochet. So right here, just like before. So I placed 2 single crochets. Now I will go ahead and I'm going to single crochet into the chain 1 space. Notice I said space, not the actual chain 1, just the space. Did you see that? So I put it in the space. Now I chain 2, skip 2 single crochets, and put a single crochet in the next chain 1 space. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with reading patterns, since we've reached a point in the pattern where there are 2 stars, that does not mean that's the end of our repeat. That will be the end of our repeat later on, but you still have to continue on with this repeat by working another single crochet in the next 2 single crochet. So I will place a single crochet in that one and then a single crochet in this one. Now I'm to the end of my repeat. So this entire repeat, I have 1, 2, 3 single crochets, a chain 2, and then 3 single crochets. I repeat, so I go back to where the star is. So I do a single crochet in the next 2 singles, do a single crochet in that chain 1 space, chain 2, skip 2 single crochets, single crochet in the next chain 1 space, and the following 2. I have to repeat one more time, and this time, this is when I will end at the star, because I'll be at the edge of my body of my shawl, and it'll be the end of my row. So I have to join with the single crochet 2 together. So let's go. I will work my single in the first 2, single in the chain 1 space, chain 2, skip 2 single crochets, single in the next chain 1 space, and now I want a single crochet in the next single crochet, and this puts me up to the last single crochet of my row. So I will do my 2 together, my single crochet 2 together. So I put my hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch up on the body of my work, not the one I did the slip stitch, the one above it. We'll go into it, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. Remember, I have to do a slip stitch in the next one up. And now I can turn my work and work on row 6. So remember, I do not want to put a stitch in that slip stitch. I will start the first stitch right here in that section right there. And let's move on to row 6. We have to put a single crochet in the first 3 single crochet right here. 1, 2, and 3. I will do a chain 2, skip the chain 2 space, then work a single crochet in the next 6 single crochet. I'm at my repeat, so I chain 2, skip the chain 2 space, work single crochets in the next 6 single crochets. I'm to my last 5 stitches, so I go ahead and chain 2, skip to the chain 2 space, and then work a single crochet in the last 3 single crochets. Let's move on to row 7 because that really rounds out this section and it shows you how to get back to where you're working with chain 1s again. I'm at the end of my row 6, so I will go ahead and turn my work. I begin with the chain 1. And I will work a single crochet in the first 2 single crochet. The way it's written is the next 2 single crochet. Chain 1, skip a single crochet, and then into this chain 2 space, I will place 2 single crochet. Remember, I do not want you to put the single crochets into the chains. I want it to go into the entire space. Once you've worked those single crochets, you chain 1, skip a single crochet, and work a single crochet in the next 2. Now we repeat from star. So we'll do a single crochet in the next 2 single crochet, chain 1, skip a single crochet, 2 single crochets in that chain 2 space, chain 1, skip a single crochet, put a single crochet in the next 2 single crochet. Now this is our repeat again. That's going to stop us short because we have to do our join. So here we go. We'll do a single crochet in the next 2, chain 1, skip a single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 1, skip a single in the next, and then here is where we have to do our join together. So I go into my last stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch on the body of my shawl, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3 of those. So I've just joined that together, work a slip stitch into the next stitch up, pull it over, turn my work, and carry on. Remember, it's okay if your yarn is coming around the back. It looks like it's kind of twisting around. See how mine twists around? Totally all right. And you want to make sure you never work into that slip stitch right there. Otherwise, you'll get too many stitches. The last thing to remember is never put more than 1 stitch in any of those single crochets you did along the edge of your shawl, along the edge of section 1. Okay, all of those stitches will either have a single crochet 2 together in it or a slip stitch. They will not have both. Okay, that's very important. That's usually where people will mess up the most, is they will start doubling up. So then all of a sudden it becomes kind of fan-like and it doesn't look right. Only 1 stitch will go into each one of those stitches. Okay, that's it, guys. That's this entire section. Once you've completed all of this section, you will have a nice path of chain 1s or chain 2 spaces for us to then go back and we will work our slip stitch chains at the very end of our project. Okay, so we're going to do that in week 4. So we're going to leave it as is right now. When it's all done, it will just have this really nice plain of single crochets connected to the body of your shawl. And so the next time I see you, I will have a green section right here and then this nice dragon fruit section over here. I think when I do week 3, I'll go back to dragon fruit and then maybe I'll do cables along right here in dragon fruit. This, of course, is just a really small sample of what you guys are completing, but hopefully it is helping you complete this section. Okay, so here's your homework. You want to complete the entire section 2 of the Abstractly Chic shawl. Again, the pattern is available on my website. I have put a link in the video description box right down there below. So if you need more instruction than just this video, that's where you want to go. You will find both written instructions there and the stitch diagram or the chart, which I find really helpful, and I promise you, I feel like you will too. It just really helps to kind of see what is going on there in that stitch diagram. Once you complete row 2 or section 2, not row 2, once you complete section 2, make sure you share with me on social media, whether it's in the Facebook group for the Crochet Along, hint, hint, hint. There's a link right there because it is fantastic. Join over there, post your picture, show us the work you're doing, or anywhere in social media, use hashtag MarleyBirdCAL, and I'll be sure to find your work and I will smash your like button. I promise if I see it, I will smash your like button because I love it when you guys smash my like button, and I know that you get excited when you see that I have liked your stuff as well. I really hope you're enjoying this shawl project so far. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of really simple, easy stitches, kind of doing them in unique and fun ways and different construction. We worked from the bottom up. Now we're coming along the side and doing a join as you go for a middle section. And then when we work section 3, it's all about decreases. So we're doing something completely different in section 3. So yeah, finish your section 2. Join me over on the Marley Bird Facebook group for the Crochet Along, or just say hi to me on Instagram or on Facebook or on Twitter or on Ravelry, or say hello right here on YouTube. I love to see your happy smiles, you guys. I just love it. It's so much fun. Okay, that's it for the instructions for this week. Good luck, everybody, and I will talk to you again soon. I'm Marley Bird, proud spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns. Thanks. Everything you need to know about knitting or crochet can be found right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Learn with Marley Bird. Visit youtube.com/Marley Bird.